Do you remember the Car Thing, the gadget Spotify released not that long ago and then announced it would brick in December? We already talked about how the Car Thing is already open source, but so weak that hacking it will be tedious. But now there's a new twist in the story. Spotify broke some of the Car Thing's core functionality, and it's not even December yet. So let's get into what happened, how it likely happened, and why this gives us an early preview of how Spotify will probably brick every Car Thing in December. If you need a refresher, check out my previous video about the Spotify Car Thing. But in a nutshell, the Spotify Car Thing is a little touchscreen device that acts as a remote control for your phone's Spotify app. From it, you can call up playlists, skip songs, control volume, and more. But it needs the phone to work, and it costs about $100, so that's probably why it didn't do well, and Spotify ended up discontinuing it. The company then announced it would brick every Car Thing in existence in December and advised customers to just throw it away. Lots of journalists and YouTubers called for Spotify to open source the Car Thing, but that was pointless, in part because the Car Thing is already open source, and because of how low powered the hardware is. But here's the new twist. Spotify broke core functionality, namely the home screen. Fire up a Car Thing and you can see what's playing and get to your playlists, but the home screen that serves as your main interaction point is just gone. And clicking the wheel in doesn't seem to do anything more either. Now more than ever, you need your phone to control Spotify and can't just rely on the Car Thing, which takes it from being a curiosity that had some use case scenarios in the car to being, well, almost useless. The folks from the Car Thing Hax community noticed the broken home screen and dug into the details. At first, it seemed like the problem came after a recent update to the Spotify phone apps, like Spotify did this maliciously. But that turned out to be just a coincidence. To understand what's going on, you have to remember an important detail about the Car Thing. It's basically just a very fancy single web page gadget. The interface does little more than call up data from Spotify through your phone and then interact with that. That's why hacking it to do other things is difficult. The hardware it runs is very low powered because Spotify didn't need anything more to just run a web page. So if you want to repurpose it, you'll need to plan for it to be a similar use case or something that requires even less power. One person leading the charge in hacking the Spotify Car Thing, Elmore377, managed to discover exactly why the Car Thing's home screen isn't working anymore. When you start up the Car Thing, or anytime you try to get to the home screen, the first thing the Car Thing does is reach out to Spotify for the necessary data to populate that home screen. Elmore managed to log those attempts, and the resulting code returned tells us what happened. Right now, when the Car Thing reaches out to Spotify's servers to populate the home screen, the first thing the servers seem to do is log that action. And to do that, it needs to know the name of the action. Instead of that expected name, it gets a null instead from the updated code, which causes the entire chain of events to fail. No log created, no home screen data returned, so no home screen. It's impossible to say for certain why this happened, but based on the chain of events, we can take a guess. You've probably heard the saying, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. And to go just a little kinder, we can say, in this case, explained by human error. It's obvious a change was made to the server-side code. The most likely explanation is that some server-side change was made to something else, and that change broke the Car Thing's home screen. Either because someone pushed code too soon, didn't fully test it, or because the Car Thing's home screen is just an edge case they weren't aware of or thinking about. Sure, it's possible Spotify chose to make this change knowing full well it'd break the home screen and just didn't care. But other functionality still works, like playlists and album art for current playing songs. So it's more likely that this was an accident, but it gives us insight into how Spotify might break the Car Thing in December. The Car Thing is completely dependent on your phone, the Spotify app, and ultimately Spotify servers to work. Without access to those servers, it has no home screen, no album art, song titles, playlists, or just about any of its core functionality. So what's the easiest way to break the Car Thing? Cut off server access. at which point they won't have to worry about maintaining the app to properly work with the Car Thing, or the servers for that matter. These kinds of errors won't be a problem, which might be why they decided to discontinue this in the first place. So what can we do? Well, if this was really a mistake, Spotify could fix the home screen, either by reverting whatever change the company made to the servers, or fixing the error that change introduced. But Spotify may not even realize the problem, and even if it does, it may not feel the need to do anything about it, given its eventual plans to brick the device anyways. All we can do in this case is put pressure on Spotify to at least fulfill its promise to allow the Car Thing to work as intended until December. But after December, the Car Thing will stop working, all of them, and your options are more limited. You could try to recycle it, or you could try to repurpose it if you're comfortable with command line. If you are, you should check out the Car Thing Hax Discord, which I've linked below. And while you're at it, you should subscribe to me. I plan to release some guides on some of the more interesting projects going on with the Car Thing Hax community. A few of them are pretty further along. For now, I recommend checking out the desk thing, and possibly hydrogen in the future, although that's on pause while someone comes up with a tool that makes it much easier to flash this. And by the way, there's another group pushing Spotify to release tools to make it easier to flash this, because right now you need to be familiar with command line, and that's too difficult for most people. So we should continue to push pressure onto Spotify to release the tools to make this easier, and support those who are working on hacking this into something useful. And I'm also working on a DIY Car Thing alternative, something Spotify can't brick that you can make yourself. Subscribe to check out that one too. It's a shame that Spotify created an accessory that looks so nice on the outside, but ultimately might end up being a giant e-waste mess. Companies can and should do better to avoid this outcome, and we should hold them to that standard if we don't want to see this happen again and again. For now, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and until next time, bye!